Hello, good evening, or good whenever you're watching this. Today, as promised, I will get into how to choose your first tarot deck. However, first off, I wanted to show you my t-shirt. Today, Saturday, the 27th, when I'm filming this, is a full moon. So if you are interested in participating in a full moon ritual, but you just don't know how to go about doing that, I'll link my full moon ritual for beginners video down below for you. However, don't fret. It's not something that you are required to do. Okay? Just a little bit of history on tarot. So it used to be a card game, and actually it was a lot more like bridge is what I have found. So way back in the Renaissance is when I believe it was created. um yeah, it was just a card game. Had nothing to do with divination. It was not used in the occult at all. It was simply a card game. It wasn't until I believe the 1700s there was a French gentleman that turned it into like started using spreads and turned it into what it started to be for divination to what it is today, what we know it as today. Please keep in mind this is an extremely small portion of tarot card history. Jean-Baptiste Eliot was only one originator for tarot. There were many who had their hands in its origins and how it is used today. So that's kind of where it started, was in the 1700s. So up until that time, tarot decks mostly looked like playing cards because it started out as a card game, but there wasn't much imagery to the cards to show what they meant until the 20th century when Pamela Smith and A.E. Waite came together with publisher William Rider and created the Rider-Waite deck. Ding! So that was when tarot cards started to have an imagery. Those three came together. They made an imagery behind the meaning to each card. Now, why is this important? Because when you're looking for a tarot deck, you want to find one that is simple, which is what the Rider-Waite deck is. It's a very simple deck to start with. There are other decks that are similar to the Rider-Waite deck. I have this one. It's Arcanum Tarot. This is similar to the Rider-Waite deck, not very exactly the same, but it's like if you saw 10 of Wands in the Rider-Waite deck, and then here is the 10 of Wands in this deck. You see the similarities. The 2 of Swords in the Rider-Waite deck, and then the 2 of Swords in this deck. So this deck is very similar to the imagery of the Rider-Waite deck, and that's kind of what you want to start with when you're looking for your first deck. I want to tell you a little story about how I chose and went about getting my first deck that I don't even have anymore, and you'll find out why in a minute. So I decided to go to Barnes and Noble. I had no idea whatsoever what I was doing. I had no idea about tarot at all, okay? So I'm standing there, right, in front of all of the tarot decks at Barnes & Noble, and I'm trying to decide, okay, what do I get? Like, there's so many choices. I don't know what to do. Then one deck in particular spoke to me. It was the Deviant tarot deck. Okay. This deck my eyes kept going down because it was on a lower level of the shelves, and my eyes just kept straying down there, and I felt so called to this deck at this point in time in my life. I was still a Christian, okay? And I still thought that this was wrong what I was doing, that I was, you know, doing something really bad, and I was just sinning, and oh my God. And I was really scared, actually, to be there. But I was way too curious to let this pass me. If, if you notice, the the imagery on Deviant Tarot seems dark. And so that scared me because that made me think evil, right? What I ended up going with was the Crystal Tarot deck. So if you notice, this deck is more, unicorns and rainbows. It's like, yay, we're not bad, and I don't know. It's a light. It was light and innocent looking, and so which is why I chose that deck. I don't know. Like, let's if I can put the images together somewhere, you can see the difference between the two decks. The problem with me going with the deck that I thought was safe instead of the deck that called to me was the deck that I thought was safe didn't work for me. It didn't like me. It wasn't for me. That wasn't the right deck. And yeah, it just didn't work. I ended up getting a whole different deck, which is the Arcanum Tarot deck. I love that deck, honestly. I ended up giving that Crystal Tarot deck to somebody else that it did resonate with. And I realize now, going back, when I looked at the Deviant Tarot cards again, while I was researching for this video, I realized the imagery on there was just so beautiful. I didn't appreciate the beauty of the imagery in those cards. Now, if you're curious about looking at those cards, either for the Crystal Tarot deck or the Deviant Art deck, I will list those down below so you can kind of take a look at the difference between those decks. Also, you might notice the difference in imagery between those decks and the Rider-Waite deck, which is the basic deck. And you'll kind of see why we like people who teach others about tarot usually say start with the Rider-Waite deck. It's just those other decks are harder to read. That just to kind of recap what we've gone through so far, it's important to get a deck that is simple and not too hard to understand, simply because you're learning. Two, it is important to get a deck that resonates with you, that speaks to you in some sort of way, because it is important for you to have a relationship with your deck. Yeah, it's really cool. Like, if you do have a good relationship with your deck, it's gonna speak to you like all the time. It's the difference between that first deck that I bought and even the Arcanum deck was just like night and day. Arcanum deck talked to me all the time. And so yeah, it's really important to have that relationship with your deck. The last point, there's this myth that you have to be gifted your deck when you first start out. Like, you have to be gifted that first deck. That's actually not true. It's not something that is necessary. I think, honestly, the only time that you would wait for a deck to be gifted to you for the first time is if it's something that's tradition within your family. If that's a family tradition, then yeah, sure, go ahead and wait for that deck to be gifted to you, because it's something that's passed down from generation to generation, and that completely makes sense for you to wait for that kind of a thing. But if it's not something that is passed down in your home, then by all means go out and get yourself a deck. There's nothing wrong with starting out with the Rider-Waite deck. It's a beautiful deck, and there's different variations of it. So yeah, I hope that I answered all of those questions. If I missed any pointers, feel free to ask down in the comments. I'll either, again, respond in the comments or add it in a video. I hope you enjoy this little lesson today, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my other videos for learning tarot, and yeah, take care everybody.